Believe it or not, silence from a woman isn't just silence. It's a message. Maybe you've been there. You send her a message. She reads it, maybe doesn't even open it, and hours turn into days. And your mind? It starts doing laps. Did I say something wrong? Did I come on too strong? Is she even interested anymore? The confusion doesn't just sit there. It eats at you quietly every time you check your phone. And I get it. That ache of not knowing is brutal. But here's the thing. What if I told you that her silence actually has more meaning than her words ever could? That in her not calling, not texting, she's revealing something about herself and about you. In this video, we're not going to give you the same tired dating advice like play it cool or just wait it out. Number? We're diving deeper. We're going to unpack exactly what her silence means, not just on the surface, but psychologically, emotionally, even spiritually. We'll look at it through the lens of Stoic philosophy, modern psychology, and real-world behavior. And more importantly, we'll figure out how you should respond, not react. By the end, you won't just feel less confused. You'll feel in control. Because once you understand the truth about silence, you stop chasing noise. Ready? Let's go. 1. The silence isn't always negative. Here's the thing most guys get wrong right out of the gate. They assume that silence means rejection. If she's not texting back, it must mean she's done, right? Not always. In fact, a lot of the time, her silence has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with what she's going through. She might be overwhelmed, emotionally drained, processing her own thoughts, or simply taking space in a way that feels normal to her. Women, generally speaking, tend to communicate in waves, not on fixed, predictable intervals. It's not uncommon for them to go quiet when they're dealing with stress, when they're unsure about how they feel, or even when they like someone and are scared of coming on too strong. We live in a culture that pushes instant replies, instant validation, but relationships, especially in their early stages, don't always follow that rhythm. There's also a psychological layer here. Studies in gendered communication, like the work of linguist Deborah Tannen, highlight how men often view communication as transactional, while women view it as relational. So when a woman pulls back or doesn't respond, it might be because she doesn't have the emotional energy to engage at that moment, not because she's ghosting or losing interest. But most men interpret that gap as rejection because we're wired to associate lack of response with failure. That misinterpretation triggers anxiety and fear, which then leads us to act in ways that sabotage attraction. Over-texting, chasing, trying to fix something that was never broken in the first place. So before you jump to conclusions, slow down. Her silence doesn't always mean something's wrong. Sometimes it just means she's human. And sometimes the best move isn't to decode her. It's to understand your own instinct to panic when things aren't immediately clear. 2. The Stoic response to uncertainty. When she doesn't text back, most guys react. They spiral. They overthink, check their phones 100 times a day, replay conversations in their heads trying to figure out what went wrong. But this is exactly where the Stoic mindset separates the boys from the men. Stoicism teaches us one powerful principle. You can't control what she does, but you can control how you respond. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In that silence, you have a choice. You can let your emotions lead, let anxiety dictate your next move, or you can pause, breathe, and choose stillness. That doesn't mean indifference. It means presence. It means not letting someone else's silence disturb your inner peace. Most of us were never taught how to sit with uncertainty. We were taught to fix, to pursue, to solve, but not to just be. The Stoic doesn't chase answers that aren't being offered. He recognizes that her silence isn't a problem to be solved. It's just an event, neutral in nature, until he assigns it meaning. And instead of assigning it meaning like, she's done with me or I must not be good enough, the Stoic reframes it. This is an opportunity to return to myself. That might sound poetic, but it's actually intensely practical. Because in that space, in that pause, you get to build strength, mental clarity, emotional discipline. You stop being a man who needs a response to feel worthy and start becoming a man who is centered, regardless of what or who comes and goes. That's not just attraction, that's power. 3. Her silence often tests your emotional strength. One of the most overlooked truths in modern dating is this: her silence might not be rejection, it might be a test. And not in a manipulative or cruel way, but in a deeply instinctive one. Women, whether they realize it or not, often test for emotional strength. Not with words, but with behavior. Pulling back, going quiet, slowing communication. These are subtle ways of asking, can you handle this? It's a comfort test, and it's more about who you are under pressure than what she feels in the moment. She's watching to see if you'll lose your center, if you'll become needy, reactive, or emotionally unstable the moment attention is withdrawn. And when you do, she learns something. Not just about the dynamic, but about you. This doesn't mean women are playing games. It means they're wired to seek emotional security, and they often gauge that by how you respond to uncertainty. In evolutionary psychology, tests like these aren't about cruelty. They're about survival. Women are biologically wired to seek out strong protectors, and strength doesn't always mean muscles or money. It often means composure. If her silence sends you into an emotional spiral, it signals instability. But if you remain grounded, calm, and self-assured, you communicate exactly what she's looking for. Safety. Not just for her, but in your own skin. The Stoic man doesn't panic when he's not being validated because he validates himself. And that quiet confidence? It's louder than any text you could send. 4. If you chase her silence, you lose. Here's the brutal irony. The moment you start chasing her silence, you almost guarantee it will continue. The more you reach out, the more you try to pull her attention back with double texts, over apologies, or just checking in messages, the more you push her further away. Why? Because now the energy has shifted. You've moved from being a man who commands respect to one who seeks reassurance. And nothing kills attraction faster than desperation. Psychologically, this is rooted in a principle called reactance. When people feel their autonomy is being threatened, even subtly, they push back. So if she's already creating space and you close that gap too quickly, she doesn't feel pulled closer. She feels suffocated. What's worse is that by chasing, you put her in a position of emotional authority. You're now waiting for her response like it's a reward, and that imbalance slowly drains the respect and polarity from the dynamic. And she may not even be consciously aware of it, but she feels it. Your energy becomes anxious instead of attractive. It's the difference between a man who says, "I'll be here if you're ready," and a man who says, "Please notice me." One is powerful, the other is forgettable. So if you're tempted to close the gap too quickly, don't. Let her feel your absence. Not to punish her, but to give her space to wonder, to miss, to choose. And in that space, you reclaim your value. Not by saying anything, but by saying nothing when it matters most. 5. What you should do instead. So what should you do instead when she goes quiet? You focus on the only thing you ever truly had control over, yourself. Not in a passive, I'll just wait it out kind of way, but in an active, intentional way that shifts your energy back into your own life. This is where a lot of men go wrong. They sit around, obsessing, watching the little green dot on Instagram, overanalyzing when she was last online. But that energy, that mental loop, it's not just unattractive, it's draining. You need to flip that script. Instead of asking, "Why isn't she texting me?" ask, "Where have I been neglecting myself?" Because 9 times out of 10, that silence is pointing you back to your own unfinished business, your goals, your mission, your growth. This isn't some vague self-help mantra either. It's a hard truth. When you shift your attention inward, you stop being a man waiting for something to happen and start being a man who makes things happen. Go journal what you're feeling, not to vent, but to clarify. Go lift weights, not to distract yourself, but to channel your energy. Build something, learn something, expand your world beyond her. The truth is, the more full and focused your life becomes, the less a delayed text can shake you. Because now you're not sitting in emotional limbo, you're in motion. And movement breeds confidence. Women are naturally drawn to that. Not a man who waits, but a man who moves forward, with or without them. That's not a tactic, it's a lifestyle. One she'll notice without you needing to say a word. 6. If she returns, you're still in control. Let's say the silence breaks. She texts you. Maybe it's a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" Or something even colder like a meme or a random comment, acting like nothing happened. Now most guys either explode with relief or resentment. They jump right back in, acting like they were just waiting by the phone, or worse, they throw guilt at her, hoping to teach her a lesson. But here's the truth. If you've spent that silent period working on yourself, growing, recalibrating, then you don't need her message. You choose how to respond. And that's where real power lies. You're not punishing her, and you're not rewarding inconsistency either. You're simply maintaining the self-respect you've built in her absence. That means you respond calmly, maturely, and with boundaries. You don't ignore her unless you've decided that she's no longer part of the path you're walking, but you also don't hand over your emotional state just because she reappeared. A simple message like, "Hey, good to hear from you. I've been keeping busy with some new things," is more than enough. It shows you've moved forward. It puts the ball in her court. And most importantly, it communicates something deeper. You don't need her to feel okay anymore. That's attractive. That's rare. Most people, men or women, expect their absence to be felt as pain. But when you respond with peace, that's when they really start to wonder what they lost. Conclusion. So the next time she doesn't call or text, don't let your mind spiral into panic or self-doubt. Let it be a moment of truth. Not about her, but about you. Because silence doesn't mean she holds the power. It means you've been given space to discover where yours really lives. And that power? It's not in what you say or how quickly you respond. It's in how steady you remain when validation isn't handed to you. It's in your ability to move forward, focus on your mission, and stay grounded even when uncertainty knocks at your door. That's what Stoicism teaches. Not to shut off your emotions, but to master them. To use that silence as a mirror and ask, am I a man who waits to feel worthy or a man who already is? Let her wonder. Let her feel your absence. Not because you're trying to play games, but because you've outgrown the need to chase breadcrumbs of attention. You're not angry, you're not bitter, you're centered. And the more you live in that calm, deliberate place, the more everything that's meant for you naturally finds its way to you. Not because you begged for it, but because you became the kind of man who attracts it. So stay grounded, stay focused, stay stoic. And if this hit home, if it reminded you of who you really are deep down, you already know what to do. Keep growing, and I'll see you in the next one.